Welcome to another edition of GooberPasta. Are you a crazy homeless person that knows the truth about stuff? Well, if you are, you might find this next tale to be quite spooky. The year is 2025. It is the future, and I am one of the sole resistance fighters in this horrible futuristic nightmare. You see, the world ended back in 2020 with the so-called coronavirus and the economic collapse of the United States and many social powers. However, if you were here today, you think things would be just fine. People live in houses, they watch sporting events, they go to work like nothing ever happened. But something did happen. The government was taken over, as of many other world powers were taken over as well, by deep state, deeply rooted movements. Their goal was simple: to control the entire world by making people think that absolutely nothing had changed. And in a way, nothing did change, except me, because I knew the truth. I began devoting my life to exposing this to people in any way, shape, or form I could. For a while, I was connected to a group of resistance fighters that met online. We were able to form an intricate network, but nobody wanted to take any action. Everybody just wanted to get on the internet and talk a bunch of stuff, but they never wanted to do anything, nor they wanted to tell me who they were and where they really lived, so we could mount an organized resistance. No, they wanted to stay hidden behind the autonomy of the internet, or the anonymity, or both, because the internet was becoming an autonomous being, if you ask me. But that's for a different, whacked out talk that I'm going to give. But no, this story is way more important. I knew that I was going to have to take to the streets in order to get the message across to people and free them from their consumeristic capitalism ideals that they held, that kept them comfortable in Sealy Posturepedic beds, big screen Roku TVs, and Sunday night football. My task was made easier by my landlord. He wanted this thing called money in exchange for me living there. I tried to convince him that money was just the ultimate tool of consumers. What the consumers will do is exchange it for more things to consume, whether that be food, entertainment, or even illicit activities like prostitution and crack cocaine drug use. But he wasn't having it, because he was deeply rooted into the grips of this authoritarian society. He called human authority figures after me not paying the rent for 3 months and had me forcefully removed from the house. Fortunately, all my belongings had been sold because I needed lots and lots of yummy alcohol in order to spread the truth. You see, excessive alcohol consumption blocked the controlling mind waves of this so-called government. I was able to resist their urge to consume, gain employment, or spend money. I'd been living on the street for several months, but I was very steadfast in my resolve to expose the truth. I tried getting on various forms of public transportation in order to spread my message. I was on an L train, which was my favorite thing to do. I knew I had limited amounts of time because people weren't ready to listen. Instead, they were buried in their phones, looking through various social media platforms mindlessly. I would get on these platforms back when I had a residence or a computer or even a phone. But now I had to get to a grassroots movement of yelling and screaming profusely. I stepped onto this L train car and began yelling and screaming, telling people that they were being blinded by all this consumerism and capitalism, and that the real people who controlled the world were very rooted in the deep state. They were all sheep, and it was time to wake up. I grabbed the gentleman by his coat collar and began shaking him to get my point across, telling him to wake up. He became very angry and began hitting me as hard as he could. Fortunately, I wore many coats, and the padding from all the coats that I wore absorbed most of his blows. Several people called human authority figures, and they arrested me at the next stop. Fortunately, they never kept me because I smelled very, very bad. But people who speak the truth tend to smell very bad. The people who are liars or people who are being deceived. I knew I was going to have to try more drastic measures. So I began standing in the middle of the Dan Ryan Expressway with a big sign that was written on cardboard, because that was the only way I could communicate the truth to the public. I jumped out in front of a car. One barely hit me because he was driving so fast to escape the truth. Another one stopped and began blaring his horn. It looked like he wanted to stomp. In fact, he kind of looked like an individual who saw the performance art stomp several times. What a goondick, I thought. I began bashing my sign on his car and told him to wake up. Several other cars had to stop too. They got over in the other lanes and there was a big wreck as someone tried to merge to escape the truth. I immediately ran off the Dan Ryan Expressway as fast as I could because I knew human authority figures would be there, and a lot of people were very angry because I was telling them the truth. I would run into office buildings while people were in meetings, wearing their big fancy consumer suits, wearing the uniform of the enslaved, a 3-piece business suit, sometimes a 2-piece, 2-button, collar down, notch lapel. God, they looked like tools, and I told them every chance I got. This one time in particular, I busted into an advertising agency, into their boardroom, where there was approximately 18 people in there. They had coffee and donuts and orange juice and all sorts of little fancy snacks these people like to eat, because they had to consume in order to be controlled. At this point, I hadn't eaten in several days, because my mission was too important, and plus I knew if I consumed anything of any type, I risked being wrapped in the control of these consumers, and these slaves, and these sheep. I busted in there with my many coats on and my signs, and I said, listen people, you guys are advertisers or some bullshit like that. I said, first off, you look like tools. That's as far as I got. 2 security guards grabbed me and pulled me out of the boardroom. I struggled as best I could, and yet, again, they began hitting me in my many coats. Fortunately, my coats were able to absorb most of the blows. Around my head, I wore a bike helmet, because I had learned that you can't wear coats on your head, and hats are not effective, but a bike helmet would absorb blows from people who are trapped in this dystopian nightmare. They threw me out on the street. I landed with a hard thud. I was running out of time. My message wasn't getting across. The more and more I yelled and screamed, the more and more people wouldn't want to listen. I didn't understand it. I was the only person in this entire city, perhaps in the entire world, that knew the truth. Only I was right. Everybody else was wrong. And seemed like I had nothing I could do about it. I was weak from not having consumed in several days, so I decided to run into a 7-Eleven and shove as many things in my mouth and my pockets as I could. As I ran into the store with my ridiculous looking outfit and my smelly garb, I started shoving granola bars, protein bars, and overpriced beverages into my pockets. As I made my way to the revolving glass door, several employees screamed, "Hey, you gotta pay for that stuff." My only reply was my usual reply. Wake up, people. Wake up. As I ran out the glass door, and I hid in the alley behind, I consumed my tasty snacks and my beverages. Oh, they were so good, and how I missed consuming. I knew this was crucial to my survival. What was the next step? What was I to do in order to get people to see the truth? I knew that I would have to do something very extreme, so I stood out in the middle of the road and waited for a car to stop. I went over and I grabbed the gentleman who was operating the automobile, and I threw him out the car. He was seatbelted in because he was a sheep, and he used this seatbelt to keep him buckled into the lie that the government was feeding him. I was finally able to pry him out of the car. He said, "Hey, you can't do that." But to my knowledge, I just did, and I didn't care. I had to spread the message. So I got in the car and started driving profusely down the street. Some wienery Top 40 radio station was playing. I had to turn it off immediately because Top 40 was another method of control. Only I knew the truth, I thought, and I was going to make sure everybody knew. So I drove as fast as I could. I got on Lakeshore Drive, and I ramped through the barricade that separated me and the little trail that went by Navy Pier. I got through Navy Pier, and it was really packed that day. I rolled down the window and I said, "Wake up, people, wake up. Your consumerism, capitalism is controlling you. It's all out of control. You're all crazy," I said. "You're all crazy." Ah! I screamed out the window. I began running people over profusely. I think I hit 17 or 18 people before the car was piled up under a bunch of people I had ran over. I began honking the horn and screaming. I got off on the car. I said, "Listen, you crazy people. You're under control. You gotta break free. You gotta break free." And I began jumping up and down on top of the car. This time, numerous authority figures came. I knew that they were going to take me in for good this time. Probably to one of their slave labor camps where they took people who knew the truth. Even if they had any, for as far as I knew, I was the only one who did know the truth. I knew there was only one thing I could do. I was going to have to get in Lake Michigan, and I was going to have to swim away. I got a nice running start. Many people were pulling out their cell phones and were recording me. I decided to give one last message before I jumped into the lake. "Wake up, people! Wake up! You're all under control. Buy more stuff. Consume. Spend money. It's the only way. It's the only way to stay in their system of control. You have to break free. You have to break free." I then jumped into the lake. It was cold. My many coats became waterlogged, but I was swimming as fast as I could. I'm very fortunate that I ate all that food I did because I would need the energy to swim out to the lake. I swam out about 70 or 80 meters, and then I decided it wasn't too bad out there. Police boats were looking for me, but my mildewy coats and my stupid-ass helmet helped me blend in nicely with the water. A riptide carried me out to the middle of the lake, where I now reside. In the lake, where there's no government control, no consumer sheep to try to convince. Just me and all these goddamn fish. Thank you, bitches.